My name is Sidney Thomas, and I bring this message to you as a servant of the Most High God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Judah. And I am to deliver this message to all of the heads of state and heads of government of all of the countries of the British Commonwealth. And it is to be copied and delivered also to Charles, he who has now acceded to the British throne as constitutional monarch of Great Britain, in succession of his recently deceased mother, Elizabeth, who was that constitutional monarch for a good long time, 70 years. So I bring this message first on the basis that I am that David Messiah that is promised in prophecy that would be raised up in the latter day, and as the one who is the rightful heir of the throne of David, of his scepter, and all appurtenances thereto. And I am to let you all know, those to whom this message is addressed, as just outlined, that the constitutional monarch of Great Britain has now for a long time not been properly constituted as the rightful heir of the throne of David, nor of his scepter, even though it is the link back to King David that is the source of all claimed legitimacy for the constitutional monarch of Great Britain. So that is the first point I am to bring to you, and I am to bring this point to you not in my own name. As I said, I am a servant of the Most High God, and He has directed me to bring this message and indeed to make the proposal that I am to make as the main point and purpose of this message. But the proposal I am to make is founded on this claim, assertion of fact, which I have just now stated. Because the rightful heir to the throne of David must be of the tribe of Judah, must be of the line of David through Solomon. And this requirement was vitiated quite some time ago when one looks at the genealogy of the constitutional monarchs of Great Britain. And so I am guided. The last king of Judah was King Zedekiah. And even the most sort of casual reading of Scripture would let one to know that before he was killed, all of his sons also were slaughtered before him. Then his eyes were gouged out. So there was no male heir to the throne of David. However, the law given to the children of Israel, IYE-HAWAH, through Moses, and it is there in the book of Numbers, chapter 36, verses 3 to 9, allows for inheritance through a surviving female where there is no male heir. But there is a condition associated with that right of inheritance by a female heir, and that condition is that the female heir must marry back into the tribe so that the inheritance does not pass to anyone of another tribe, let alone another one who is not even of one of the tribes of Israel. And what I am now to assert is that for a long time, the constitutional monarchs of Great Britain have not kept up that requirement, that Charles, who now has succeeded his mother as constitutional monarch, is not of the tribe of Judah, rather is of the tribe of Esau. He is an Edomite. Therefore, he cannot, according to the law which I've just cited, Numbers chapter 36, verses 3 to 9, lay claim to the scepter of Judah, nor may he lay claim to the appurtenances that go along with the throne of David, including the stone of Scone, as it is called in the British Isles, also known as Jacob's pillar. That stone upon which British monarchs have been coronated for many, many centuries, going back essentially all the way to that first one, Eochaid of Ireland, who married the female heir of Zedekiah, Tefi, who was brought over to the British Isles, and in particular to Ireland, by Prophet Jeremiah with the inheritance items pertaining to the throne of David. The scepter, Jacob's pillar, the throne in effect, the crown in effect, and the right that goes with that inheritance to be seated upon the throne of David. So when she married that first sort of one to whom the appurtenances were attached, Eochaid of Ireland, he properly wielded the scepter and wore the crown associated with King David, for his last heir, Zedekiah, before Judah essentially was brought down. But somewhere along the line, the condition of Numbers chapter 36 was vitiated, and the line, inheritance line, went Edomite. And I'm guided that as early as King James I of England, the 6th of Scotland, his father, Lord Darnley, although negroid of appearance, mulatto sort of appearance, was in fact Edomite. So the line of Stuarts that were called the Jacobite kings were in fact not of Jacob, rather of Esau. That is the King James that formed that committee of translators that provided to us the King James Bible. But that line of holders of the British crown passed away from the house of Stuart in any case, and was taken up by William and Mary, who had come over from the Netherlands. And I'm not a historian per se of British, royal history, but I'm guided also that line, William and Mary line, from which came various Georges down to George the Sixth, who was otherwise known as Albert, the mother of the recently deceased Elizabeth. He also, on that entire line, would not have been of the tribe of Judah either. So whether going back to the line of the Jacobite kings, descending from King James, or whether going back to William and Mary, who came over and founded that particular line, those have not been have not adhered to the requirement that the line, the bloodline, must remain of the tribe of Judah, for that inheritance that passed to a female heir at the death of King Zedekiah to be properly constituted according to Israelite law. So what I am saying is that Charles is not properly constituted as heir to the throne of David, although carrying the scepter of Judah, although in possession of Jacob's pillar, the stone of scone, and pardon me if I'm not pronouncing it correctly in proper Scottish manner, that's that Jacob's pillar upon which no doubt it is the intention that he be coronated sitting thereon. And also in the emblems that are associated with the constitutional monarch of Great Britain, the lion emblem, that is referencing the Lion of Judah, and there is no properly constituted basis within Israelite law that would give them the right to use such an emblem, because they are not of the tribe of Judah. Okay, that's the first sort of basis upon which this message that I am to bring and the proposal contained therein, that's the first basis of it. Secondly, what I am to say is that there is a prophecy to the effect, and I will quote it verbatim, in the book of Daniel chapter 9 at verse 24. There is a reference to a certain amount of time that is given, and let me find it here. I'm taking a little too long with it, but bear with me, I pray. Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. Because this is where we are now in terms of prophecy. And I read Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. And I'm to let you know that with the passing of Elizabeth, those 70 weeks have been fulfilled. This prophecy needs a bit of explanation and interpretation because it says 70 weeks. Well, in the original Hebrew, the word here translated as weeks is actually shabuah, which is a 7-week period, and that is that period that is the 7 weeks prior to the day of Pentecost, the day of Shavuot in the Hebrew. And that 7-week period, that Shabuah, leading up to Pentecost, occurs but once a year on the Hebrew calendar. So the 70 weeks referred to here essentially is a reference to such Shabuahs. Less precisely, it could have said 70 Shavuots or 70 Pentecosts. And even less precisely, it could have said 70 years. Elizabeth was enthroned, coronated, in the year 1952. At 70 years, that brings us to where we are now, 2022. And that is all the time that is given. And now we must make an end of this iniquity, make an end of this unrighteousness, seal up the vision and prophecy, and anoint the most holy. Charles is not that most holy for the reasons I have already stated. But here now what I am suggesting is Daniel chapter 9 verse 24 has been fulfilled with the passing of Elizabeth. And that being the case, it is now for that David Messiah of promise and prophecy to be raised up. Now, this is a tricky verse of Scripture because it has actually more than one fulfillment. There are some prophecies which are double-barreled and even triple-barreled in that regard, because the countdown of the 70 years were actually several. And this one pertaining to Queen Elizabeth is only one of 3 of them. But I will not try to explain the other ones. One of those countdowns pertain rather to the modern state of Israel, and that one started in 1951. Another one pertains to, what was it? It now has slipped my mind. Yes, it pertains to the United States. And that began actually in 1953, when the United States CIA interfered in the internal affairs of the state of Iran and brought down a properly constituted head of government there, Mossadegh, and that started another 70-year countdown. Now, they end up in different years, 2021 in one case, 2022 in this case, 2023. But they all fall within a 4-year span, which pertains to Habakkuk, who prophesied that there would be a tarrying. And I won't get into any detail as to that, but just to let you know that I have been given that the time now set for the sort of wrapping up of this matter is 2024. Could have gone as late as 2025, and I suppose there is still some wiggle room in that regard. Only the Most High knows. Okay, but 2024 is what He has given me as to when, in effect, there shall be a final fulfilling of this 70-year countdown. In other words, what I'm saying is the time is up. And now it is for the rightful heir to take the throne of David, to take the scepter of David, to take the Jacob's pillar, otherwise known as the stone of school, and indeed to be raised up to occupy the restored throne of Zion, throne of David, and to establish that kingdom of Zion. And that's my task. Well, my task, but with not much of responsibility in terms of making it all happen. And what do I mean by that? Because it's there in the book of Isaiah chapter 9, and I'm to read this to you. Chapter 9, verses 6 and 7, and I now quote, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." And in verse 7, "Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David, and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts," properly named IYE-HAWAH, "will perform this." And I repeat that last sentence. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. So this is not a matter for a mere mortal like me to make to happen. So I come here only as an instrument. I come here only as a messenger, although that one to be raised up upon this throne of David. But that would happen at all is not going to be because of any special might, any special gift that I have been given. Rather, it shall be by the will and by the power and by the zeal of the Most High, IYE-HAWAH. And I will also take you to the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verses 26 and 27, where is made clear that the David Messiah is not at all Yeshua, otherwise known as Jesus. And Jesus is wrongly called Messiah because he is not that David Messiah. And we can gather that plainly from Revelation chapter 2, verses 26 and 27. And I start at Verse 26, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. And the I here is Yeshua, Jesus Christ, because he's the one dictating this to John the Revelator, as we know from Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. So the I here is Jesus. And the he here is that one to whom Jesus will give power over the nations. And then in verse 27, and he, and that is the David Messiah, who Jesus will raise up, shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I, this is Jesus here speaking, received of my Father, which is that Most High. So it is Jesus raising up the David Messiah on behalf of the Father, IYE-HAWAH. Okay, so the Messiah is actually, is that David Messiah of promise and prophecy. He is not at all Jesus. And just to be a little bit further clear as to that, in the book of Matthew chapter 24, verses 4 and 5, this was Jesus was saying, take heed that ye be not deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying that I am Christ, and shall deceive many. In other words, and this is a central premise of Christianity, which calls him the Christ, which simply means Messiah, and that would be a deception. Why? Because he is not the Messiah. He's going to raise up the Messiah. Okay, and let me also go to the book of Psalms, chapter 2, which also addresses this matter of the David Messiah and him being raised up to the throne. And I'll start at verse 6. Psalms number 2, chapter 2, verse 6. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. IYE-HAWAH, the Most High, hath said unto me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. So this is where the David Messiah is declaring the decree after he has been made king or appointed that David Messiah, where he will say, and it is a decree when he says it, IYE-HAWAH had said unto me, that's the David Messiah, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. So that the David Messiah is to become a begotten son of IYE-HAWAH. I won't go more into that, but continuing with verse 8. Ask of me, so this is now the Most High is essentially saying this to the David Messiah after he's been made that king upon the holy hill of Zion. And I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. And so this has specific reference here now to the Commonwealth heads of government and heads of state. Because this is a promise to that David Messiah, who is to be made the king, that he merely has to ask the Father, and the Father's zeal would accomplish this promise. ask of me, and I shall give thee the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. And then going on to verse 9, thou shalt break them with a rod of iron, which is what we saw in Revelation chapter 2, verse 27. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. So that the zeal of God also would allow for this power somehow to be given to the David Messiah at his mere asking. So now, hence the proposition I am making to the heads of state and heads of government of the British Commonwealth, because I know that you're all now having to reconsider whether after the end of the Elizabethan II era you wish to remain as part of that British Commonwealth under Charles as constitutional monarch of Great Britain. Indeed, even the British must ask themselves the same question, whether they wish to continue with a constitutional monarch after the manner they have had, certainly these last 70 years, with Elizabeth II, whether they wish to continue that arrangement under a Charles III. That is a very basic question, and what I'm suggesting to you is, according to Scripture, that in effect that arrangement must now be brought to an end. Why? Because the prophecy of Daniel chapter 9 verse 24 essentially says that it is going to be put an end to, because we must now under Zion order and Zion system now come to a different arrangement. Because right now we are at the tail end of the fourth king of the Gentiles, as was prophesied also by Daniel. And a fourth king of the Gentiles also is known as Babylon, Mystery Babylon. And that is now being brought down. Babylon is fallen, as was prophesied in the book of Revelation, chapter 18, verse 2. And I have been guided, and it's there in an earlier message that I was guided to deliver to the Vatican and also to the modern state of Israel, that prophecy, Revelation 18, verse 2, was fulfilled already in the spiritual. And so now it's only a matter now of time for Babylon order and Babylon system to be brought down. And when that happens, Zion order will be reestablished, as is there referred to in Psalms number 2. He will put his holy king upon holy Mount Zion. So this is where we are, and I am to suggest to you that even before the zeal of the Most High performs this promise, whereby there shall be essentially no end to the government put upon the shoulders of that David Messiah, rather than wait for it to happen by force, in effect, with that rod of iron being sort of deployed for that purpose. It might well be for those countries of the British Commonwealth to throw their weight, so to say, behind the David Messiah, who has been appointed, who is now the one bringing this message to you, okay, and to now make that to happen in a peaceful way, in a peaceful and orderly transition. Okay, so that is the whole point of this message. And with that, I shall say, well, thank you very much. And to all of you, I wish you peace. I do wish to say, as protocol properly and rightfully requires, I do wish to say that it saddened me to see the passing of Elizabeth II. She has been an excellent example, a model of dignity, a model of grace. And that is partly why under her reign, the British Commonwealth has stuck together as tightly as it has. But now the time has come for a change to be made, and I can only offer the condolences that are required, and indeed heartfelt, because like everyone else, for her to pass, it was like, a member of the family to pass, because she's been in our consciousness, so to say, for so very long. And I know that it was also a very difficult thing for Charles and for the grandchildren, William and Harry, and their respective spouses, who I'm sure would have grown, well, not grown, but who I'm sure loved Elizabeth very, very much, and now would be saddened to see her passing, as old and as frail as she was. It still would have come as a shock. So I add my voice to all those expressing condolences to those who she has left behind. And as everyone else, we deserve at least the chance for the Most High's mercy. And so I pray that the Most High grant her mercy, that the Most High grant her peace as she transitions to the other side. Okay, so with that, I wish you all Shalom.